Newer industries with fewer regulations, they see high levels of burnout among employees due to a culture of working well beyond 40 hours a week and taking on responsibilities beyond what was listed in the job description. Let's investigate the novel phenomenon of what they're calling quiet quitting. Hey, and welcome back. If you're new here, hey, my name is Preston and I'm a professional recruiter in the technology industry. The work adjustments we made at the onset of the pandemic have triggered a cacophony of debates over work cultures here in the United States. You're undoubtedly familiar with and probably sick of hearing about things like remote work sustainability and the so-called Great Resignation. But if you aren't, as always, I encourage you to go back and watch some of my previous videos for some context. One thing I haven't talked too much about though is a long-running contention over what some consider a pervasive culture of overworking here in the US. Some feel that, especially in the years and months leading right up to the pandemic, employers started to ask too much of their employees, especially by promoting a culture where things like overtime for salaried employees is the norm, while a 40-hour work week is considered not enough or even lazy. This, of course, is a charged issue with many facets and a wide range of opinions. It is not my intention whatsoever to solve this problem or promote a particular side or viewpoint. But today, I want to explore a particular aspect of this debate and whether it has merit so we can have further nuanced discussion about it. But with that said, let's investigate the novel phenomenon of what they're calling quiet quitting. But before we get started, as always, please consider helping a recruiter out and like, subscribe, click this video. It really means a lot. As a business owner, I know the importance of putting in the work and going above and beyond. It's essential to my long-term success as an independent recruiter. Unfortunately, sometimes that does mean making sacrifices in my personal life. However, as my own manager, I have some degree of control over how much effort I put in and when it's important to take a break and relax and recharge. Hourly and salaried employees, however, don't have as much control over where and when they work. A retail worker's hours and responsibilities are set by their manager. A full-time, salaried employee is expected to put in 40 hours a week and complete tasks by a specific deadline. Of course, all of this is to be expected in operating a team of people smoothly. The issue comes from the extra work and above and beyond work that may fall outside of the job responsibilities you signed up for, whether that be simply more hours or additional tasks that need to be completed. In well-regulated industries and organizations, employees are given the freedom to choose whether to take on this extra work and are typically compensated extra by doing it. It is becoming more common, however, for this extra work to be seen as essential to the long-term operation and success of the company. Newer industries with fewer regulations, such as video game development, they see high levels of burnout among employees due to a culture of working well beyond 40 hours a week and taking on responsibilities beyond what was listed in the job description. This has led to the subject of today's video, a practice employees are engaging in called quiet quitting. So what is quiet quitting? Unlike the so-called Great Resignation, a real phenomenon that continues to this day, quiet quitting is more of a loose buzzword to describe a general attitude towards work, as well as a number of specific actions that depend on the individual's viewpoint. It is a complete misnomer, in fact, because quiet quitting doesn't actually involve quitting at all. In this case, quitting is more of a euphemism for placing less value on one's job and setting firm boundaries between their professional lives and their personal lives. Often, this means a full-on rejection of overtime and additional tasks that go beyond the scope of one's job description. In other words, not above and beyond. Put simply, quiet quitting refers to staying on a company's payroll but placing more importance on personal time and hobbies outside of the workplace. To what extent an employee quiet quits depends on the individual. Some advocate simply for disconnecting their career from their identities, so their personal values is not tied directly to their professional performance. Others simply passively coast from 9 to 5, doing the bare minimum to get by, but not putting effort into improving their performance or receiving promotions. Regardless of how someone decides to engage in quiet quitting, their ultimate goal is to free up more mental space for their personal lives, hopefully improving their overall mood and giving them more time to see friends and family. Quiet quitting is best explained by the TikTok user who popularized the phrase in July 2022, aka ZK Chillin. Quote, "You're not outright quitting your job, but you're quitting the idea of going above and beyond. You're still performing your duties, but you're no longer subscribing to the hustle culture mentality that work has to be your life. The reality is it's not, and your worth as a person is not defined by your labor," end quote. A positive attitude shift for employees? As you can imagine, the idea of quiet quitting sparked plenty of debate. Many argued its importance in promoting employee freedom and well-being, while others saw it as an excuse for them to be lazy and slack off on the job. Obviously, it's impossible to deny the importance of maintaining a strong work-life balance. Overwork and burnout are simply unsustainable for anyone, and the discussion around quiet quitting is an important one. If employees feel they're being overworked, it's important for managers and executives to listen to them or risk endangering the efficiency and even existence of their workforce. Unfortunately, this seems to be the case across a variety of industries. According to a number of polls conducted by Gallup, Generation Z and younger generations are showing all-time lows in work engagement during the first quarter of 2022. More than half of the workers surveyed by Gallup born after 1989 identified as not engaged in their job or career. Younger employees report feeling that their work is meaningless and has no purpose. Proponents of quiet quitting advocates for the practice in order to reduce these feelings. They remind its detractors that quiet quitting should not be an excuse to slack off, but a reminder to avoid burnout. Certainly, the questions they raise are important ones, like do we work harder than is necessary? What effect does it have on our actual mental health? Or an excuse for them to slack off. The critics of quiet quitting consider it to be a passive-aggressive and ineffective way of protesting overwork culture. They also point to the negative effects of disengaged workers on the team as a whole. For example, Jim Harder, a workplace culture researcher for Time, had this to say, quote, "Whether people feel like their coworkers are committed to quality work can affect the performance of the organization and cause friction inside teams or organizations," end quote. Bloomberg's Allison Schrager suggests finding meaning and value even in tedium. Quote, "All jobs are meaningful. If someone pays you to do something, it has value. If a desire for a job with a big mission that will give your life meaning prevents you from working hard or staying in a job long enough to develop skills, you will not only earn less money, you will never find what you were looking for," end quote. A short-term solution for a long-term issue, the inherent weaknesses of quiet quitting. Ultimately, the effects of an employee quiet quitting will depend greatly on their overall attitude and their role in the organization. Since it can mean anything from setting boundaries on the job to skirting by on the bare minimum, it's important to say whether or not it is an effective practice. Going too far, detaching yourself from your work, risks having the opposite effect by removing any and all meaning from your work and driving further resentment. When quiet quitting becomes about trying to prove a point, it quickly becomes a toxic effort with a variety of negative mental health effects. Being disengaged in a job can easily exacerbate feelings of stress and burnout. Additionally, by mislabeling the action as quitting and putting emphasis on it, proponents risk reinforcing the idea that go above and beyond is the norm. Zishan Alim, an opinion columnist at MSNBC, put it best. Quote, "If one labels the idea of working reasonable hours and declining to exceed expectations as quitting, that implicitly reinscribes the very ethos it's pushing back against. It's an admission that it's transgression to do something like leave the office or sign off at the time a manager told you it was okay when you were first hired. It frames drawing boundaries and standing up for oneself as reneging on duties," end quote. Quiet quitting is likely just a fad, and it should be noted that coasting in a job is certainly not a new concept. This appears to be just a trendy, viral way of disengaging and withdrawing from one's job. That said, the discussion around the practice is incredibly important. What can you do to fight what many feel is an exploitative workplace culture in the United States? One option is unions. When workers unionize, they gain leverage over their payment and responsibilities and work together to ensure employees are not taken advantage of. Another option is to throw away this notion of quiet quitting and to do what is positive and healthy for you. That may mean setting boundaries and saying no in overtime. If you cannot find value or meaning in your work, the job market is still great. You may consider finding a new, more satisfying job. As always, I recommend reaching out to a recruiter to help with that. Do you have anything else to add to the conversation? I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you comment down below. If you like this video, want to see more like it, feel free to support a fellow recruiter. Like, subscribe, click the bell. Really means a lot. Feel free to also follow me at Press_Park for more daily behind the scenes content. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one.